Have you ever heard of someone spending nearly 3 decades in prison for stealing something worth less than $50? It sounds like the beginning of a movie or maybe an urban legend, but this story is neither. It's real, and it's about a woman whose life was swallowed up by a single mistake, punished under one of the harshest laws America has ever seen. Welcome to Behind the Verdict, where we uncover shocking true stories of justice, injustice, and everything in between. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because the story you're about to hear is one you won't forget. It was 1994 in California. The country was in the middle of a crime wave, and lawmakers were desperate to prove they could crack down on crime, no matter the cost. The public was afraid, demanding harsher punishments. Out of this fear came something called the 3 Strikes Law, a law that would change thousands of lives forever. And one of them was a woman named Michele Thiesen. Michele was not the kind of criminal you see in movies. She wasn't a violent gang leader or a mastermind. She was a woman who had lived a hard life, poverty, drugs, petty crime, surviving one day at a time. She'd been arrested before, but never for anything that made her dangerous to society. Still, those little mistakes added up. One day, desperate and lost, Michele made a choice that would cost her everything. She broke into a house. She believed no one was inside. The place was quiet. Still, inside the living room sat a VCR, bulky, outdated even by 90 standards, worth maybe $40 or $50. She picked it up, planning to leave quickly, but then she heard footsteps. Someone was upstairs. Panic set in. Michele bolted for the door, the VCR in hand, but she didn't make it far. Within hours, police caught up with her. A stolen VCR, a burglary charge. On its own, maybe a few months or a couple of years in prison. But Michele wasn't just facing this one crime. She was standing in the shadow of her past, and in the jaws of the new 3 Strikes Law. When she walked into that courtroom, it wasn't just a trial for a theft. It was a trial for her entire life. The prosecutor painted her as a career criminal. Her past arrests for drugs, for petty theft, for prostitution were laid out one by one. Each mistake made her look like a monster to the jury. The burglary, even though she hadn't hurt anyone, became her 3rd strike. And then came the sentence. The judge's gavel slammed down. The words rang like a death sentence. 40 years to life. For a VCR worth less than $50. Imagine it. A young woman, already broken by hardship, now facing decades, maybe the rest of her life, behind bars. In prison, time became her enemy. The days dragged on, one after another. The walls closed in. Holidays passed without her family. Children grew up without their mother. She watched birthdays and milestones fade into the distance, locked away where she could only imagine what life outside had become. But Michele wasn't alone. Across California, thousands of men and women like her were swept up by the 3 Strikes Law. Some for shoplifting, some for stealing food, some for nonviolent crimes that, in another era, would have meant just a few months behind bars. The prisons overflowed, not with violent criminals, but with people whose biggest crime was being caught too many times. For years, Michele's story was just another file in the system. Forgotten, buried. But then something began to change. People started asking questions. Was justice really being served? Was it right to give life sentences for petty crimes? Advocacy groups spoke out. Lawyers fought back. And slowly, the public began to see what the system had done. Decades after her sentence began, Michele finally got a second chance. A court reviewed her case. The world outside had changed, and the harshness of the 3 Strikes Law no longer seemed fair. After nearly 27 years, Michele Thiesen was released. But freedom wasn't simple. She was no longer the young woman who walked into that house in 1994. She was older, grayer, her best years spent in a cage. She stepped out into a world that had moved on without her. The price of that VCR had been nearly 3 decades of her life. Think about that. Less than $50. 27 years gone. Her story is a reminder, not just of the mistakes people make, but of the unforgiving weight of laws designed for punishment, not for mercy. And so I leave you with this question. Was justice truly served? Or was it stolen from her, just like that VCR? Subscribe to Behind the Verdict for more true stories that will make you rethink everything you know about crime and punishment.